of a contribution was stab in the back theory to the rise of the Nazi Party? And was it used not just for internal consumption, but also as some kind of a theory to explain international relations and actions by Nazi Germany?
Not really, no. I think you have to distinguish between the propaganda uses, which I said were fairly minimal, really. They're concentrated much more on what they called the November criminals, were the men who had sued for peace and signed the peace deal in the armistice of the 11th of November, 1918, and then the peace treaty the following year, which had surrendered. I didn't have any option because they were militarily so weak, but and the German armies had melted away by that stage, but they surrendered chunks of German territory. Germans had to admit to war guilt. They had to pay reparations for the damage they'd caused in the occupation of northeastern France and Belgium. They weren't allowed to have more than 100,000 men in the army. They had weren't allowed to have combat aircraft or a fighting navy, all of these things. And Hitler focused his propaganda on the people, the men who'd signed the peace deal, not the so-called stab in the back. The important thing, though, is that that stab in the back belief drove a lot of the policies of Nazi Germany. So I mentioned trying to get the Jews out of Germany, and about half of them were forced to emigrate between 1933 and 1939. But also Hitler believed that he had to try and maintain living standards as far as possible in Germany, and in particular to ensure that women and families at home, while their men were fighting at the front between 1939 and 1945, they did not become discontented because they didn't have enough to eat like they had in World War I. And so he arranged the policy to have very generous family allowances for the families of soldiers, just in order to prevent what he thought might be a stab in the back. And it was, in the end, he went down fighting and committed suicide rather than risk being accused of weakness and signing any kind of peace treaty. Not that there was any chance of that, because the Allies wanted unconditional surrender. So it drove a lot of Nazi thinking, but wasn't used a huge amount in their propaganda.